Seconds. Yeah, there we go. Just gonna switch my scene. There we go. It's awesome, people! I'd like to be! Woo! Everything is working correctly. Here we go, my friends. This is my good friend, Daniel Cannon, the one and only big inspiration behind Just Ships and Meats. I have to bow before you, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show, man.
Oh, I'm there.
Yes, you are.
I just saw my face pop
there
up.
you go. Did you hear yourself with a feedback or something?
No, I just turned off the stream audio, so we should be good now.
There we go. It's just between you and me then. Sweet.
Yeah.
How you been, man?
I've been pretty good. I've been having kind of a lazy summer. I did a tour in June, and after that, I've just sort of been partying and having a good time. And I'm doing a bunch of traveling coming up in the next couple months, so I don't want to do too much before that.
Yeah, well, it's all part of marketing your new CD. You could say count that as job.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's business. You have to party.
Well, it's business and pleasure.
Sweet, I like it. How was the release of the CD? New album.
How was the release, you said?
Yeah.
The release was amazing. I hit the goals that I wanted to. I set some loose goals like, hey, I want to sell this many copies. I actually wanted to chart on Billboard, but I didn't, it turns out. Somebody told me that the amount that I sold should have charted at the bottom of the charts. But I wasn't on there, so maybe it was a bad week for me to release or something. But whatever. That was my goal. I didn't quite hit it, but I was close.
Sweet, and you released that. By the way, guys, let me know if the audio is okay, right? Somebody in the chat told me that the audio was a little bit down for me, so I just upped my mic. Let me know if it's okay. Yeah, you released it in March, I believe, right? I was in Asia when you released it, so I was so excited.
March 11th. What were you doing in Asia?
That's a not so long story. Actually, I was about to say it's a long story, but I was in Asia with my wife and kids. Actually, it was on a personal trip for 6 months. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was working over there, so actually we just moved our life over there. So instead of working 40 hours in my office, I work 40 hours with my laptop around the world in coffees and stuff like that. So we just visited a bunch of countries and everything.
That is amazing.
So yeah, just having your new album was like my new soundtrack for work for the next month to come.
Oh, awesome.
Sweet. I especially how did you got the pianist on board? I mean, I really love the piano because I play piano myself, and I really love the piano interpretation in this one. How did you got him on board, or is it a friend of yours, or?
Yeah, he's an old friend. We used to enter these remix competitions a couple of years back, probably 7 or 8 years back, and he is just an absolute monster. I met him at MagFest. His name is Schnabubala, which is a ridiculous name, but he's a ridiculous guy. And I actually had him do a piano solo on my first album, Roots, and I just sort of had a brainstorm one day because I was trying to think about interesting things to do for the album, and I was like, hey, Schnabubala is arguably the most talented musician that I know in the world. I should ask him to do, a remix or a remake of one of my tracks. It'd be cool to hear it in a different instrumentation and something like that. So I told him to just go nuts and do whatever he wanted.
Yeah, I think that you shared something on Facebook once where he played something, he started an interpretation of the Skype song or something like that.
I love that Skype remix.
That was insane.
He's a monster, eh? He is arguably one of the best musicians I've ever heard in my entire life, and the fact that I get to collaborate with him at least a little bit is kind of amazing.
And that's Daniel saying that you are the best musician in my head, so...
Aww, thank you. It's all relative, right?
Do you remember how we met? That sounds super romantic, but do you remember... do you remember how we met, actually? Probably not.
But did we meet at PAX East?
Yeah, but we met before that.
Maybe not.
Probably not.
We met at GDC, but I don't remember it.
Wow, there you go. Wow. You do remember? Oh my god. So,
I just remember you approached me after GDC about possibly doing some stuff for Just Shapes and Beats, and you were like, hey, I met you there. And that's how I knew that going to GDC was a good idea, because I had a bunch of people come up to me and ask me to, collaborate on projects. And some of them didn't pan out, and some of them did. But
Yeah, I think you worked on the how's this called, Rex.
yeah,
Uh,
Jump Jet Rex.
there you go, there you go. Yeah, yeah. One of the song on the Lunaria is from there, right? I think it's Behemoth.
Yep. I that track actually, Behemoth, was written for Jump Jet Rex, and then I
Okay.
was like, hey, I want to kind of take that further and go crazy with it, and then put it on my record. So
Sweet, sweet. So
kind of cool how that works out.
yeah, I mean that was a totally random encounter when we met. Actually, it was in a bar X. I don't remember which one or whatever, but it was like a good show. So a lot of people were there. There was having like the musician from Shovel Knight as well. You
Right.
performed as well. There was a bunch of musicians, and I just came out like super late. There was a table. You were there. I didn't know you. I just came to you and say, "Hey, what CD? What should I buy?" And I don't think that you heard because it was just like like super loud. So you just like presented your CD. And was like, "All right, I'm gonna take them all." So I bought them and I listened to them like in the plane back to home, and I really fell in love with parallel processing. The this one, and it was like, okay, I started to saw like shapes in my head, saying like, oh, I have like a game design in my head and everything. So I have to make a game out of that album. And yeah, I went to a little game jam once back in Quebec, and I made a little game called Just Chips and Beats in 2 days, and then thing just the ball just rolled up, and now I'm still working on it, and people are waiting for it. So yeah,
It's kind of crazy to think, that my music was partially inspired by game music that I heard, and then I went and wrote these tracks, and then
full circle.
game developers like you like hear the music and then want to make game material based around it. It's kind of a crazy little circle of
Yeah,
like
right.
inspiration.
Totally, totally. The full circle is now complete. I see
Yeah.
something like in the an hexagon behind you. By the way, is that from like Super Hexagon or something? There's like something in your little shelf in the background.
Oh, yeah, that's the Super Hexagon vinyl actually.
What?
Yeah, and it's a hexagon. Hold on. Let me
No
grab.
way. I
Yeah, the
want
packaging's
this.
a little messed up, but it's by Chipsel. She did
Yep.
a Super Hexagon.
Yep, Chizol, I know her.
She's super cool. I'm gonna be hanging out with her like next week in New York, and then a
Nice.
couple weeks after that in Tokyo, actually. Um,
Sweet.
yeah,
Sweet. In Tokyo? You have
yeah,
a show over there, or?
yeah. I'm gonna be playing an after party at Chiptune Festival over there. I was going over there just for fun. I found some really cheap flights out of LA, and I was like, "Fuck it, let's go." I can swear, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, you get them
okay,
all the
just
time.
check. I was
It's
like, yeah,
French.
let's go to Tokyo because I had such a blast there last time I was there. And as soon as I said I was thinking about going, a friend of mine's like, hey, do you want to play a show? I was like, well, if I'm there, I might as well play a show. So,
That's insane. I'm pretty sure that people over there will enjoy the music as well. I mean, I know we presented the Just Hips and Beats on the Bit Summit, and people loved it. And so, your music was all in there. I think that the Just Hips and Beats demo only have your music. Yes. Yes, totally.
so can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
What's the plan with just shapes and beats? I need a an update. I don't know what's going on with it. So
Okay, so I don't know when was the last time, but to go back in history a little bit, it was put on the ice a little bit because we were looking for funds because we wanted to have like lots and lots of artists to jump on the project, so lots of people to come together, lots of license, etc., etc. So we were looking for funds to do it, and last year we got the funds from not a publisher, but from Canadian government. We got the funds to continue and finish the game. So we are back on production on this, and we had to on the past 6 months when I was in Asia. Actually, I reworked all the UI. I reworked like a lot of stuff that's like out of level or like around the game, should I say? Like for example, the control screen or adding a controller and blah blah, all that stuff, and also multiplayer, like online multiplayer. So I added a lot of non-level related stuff in Just Ships and Beats, just like to put all the basics to construct more level. So I built a level editor, like a better level editor, so I can create more level now. And
cool.
now we are back on not square one, but right now we are creating content. We are creating like like all the plate and the salad and everything is there. Now we're working on the steak, you know. So
Cool. Because I've been seeing it, all around the world. Every single festival you guys show it at, I always had people being like, "Oh man, there was this most amazing game that I saw that had your tunes in it," and I'm like, "Oh, I really hope this gets released soon because everyone seems to be super hyped about it." So
yeah, and that's another pressure on my shoulders. Should I say like. A lot of people are hyped for the project, and I'm like, yeah, I want to work on it, and I'm like, we are only 3 people in the project, so I only say like, well, it's gonna come soon, but I don't know the best release date because it's our first game too at Berserk Studio. It's our very first game on console, so I really don't want to mess that up, So I don't want to fail under the pressure and just release something that is not up to my standard. So we're really working on that. But yeah, we actually talked to Chipzel about having her on board. So we're still talking we're still talking with her. She played the game. She liked it. We had also Cyber Pulse,
Sweet.
Phantom and K. We're talking with Amnetica as well, and we have like a bunch of musicians as well. So we just like got in touch with them. We just have to sit down and make all the paperwork and everything. But yeah, we are working on more and more music and more musician right now.
Cool. I'm excited for release eventually.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people is excited for it, and yeah, I wake up every morning saying, okay, I have to work on this, and then I just open internet, and it's like, when is it gonna come out?
Better than nobody being excited about it.
Yep, that's a good problem to have. I should stop whining and get working.
Yeah.
There you go. When I was working on it, actually, I was working on a level based on the Amnetica, and like 5 minutes ago, just before hopping on the stream. So I am working back on it.
Okay.
But yeah,
I just wanted to check in on that. I'm kind of excited for the project. So.
Do it. Poke me every day and say, hey, Lach, are you working on it? Are you working yet? I was like, I'm sleeping. Are you working? You should be working.
Yes.
But yeah, it is in the pipeline. But yeah, enough about me. What about you? Anything new coming up?
Let me think about that. Oh, I got something kind of crazy. I can't talk about it too much.
Okay.
But so I just did this licensing deal with this company called Pokemon.
No.
And they wanted to use one of my tracks in an upcoming project. I can't really say anything about it, but they were between one of 3 tracks. They're like, oh, we're going to use one of these. We're just not sure which one yet. And one of them is a track that is already in Just Shapes and Beats. So that would be crazy.
What?
Yeah. So
that's insane.
Yeah, so it's possible that, I think it's the track Chronos. It has like a 1 in 3 chance of being a track used in a piece of Pokemon media upcoming. So that's pretty cool.
So now we're gonna have a song from Pokemon and we're gonna have a song from Mortal Kombat. So
oh yeah, cool.
Yeah, we had the license for Mortal Kombat, by the way.
Nice. Nice.
But yeah, that's insane, man. Congrats on that. How did that happen? You just went to GDC and just like playing guitars and somebody came.
No, you know what? It's the same way that everything works is you meet people. And I ended up finding out that somebody who I had performed with not even recently, a bunch of years ago, now works for the Pokemon company. And he must have brought my name up when they were looking for stuff. And that's how that works. It's always knowing people. Like, the only reason I'm on Just Shapes and Beats is because I met you.
Yeah.
Or you saw me play. So you really can't beat that sort of just actually meeting people and going out places. And so yeah. that's how that works.
Somebody once said half of the success is just showing up.
Oh yeah,
that. You just go out there and meet people. So.
And being at the right place at the right time. And obviously you can't know which place is the right place, so you kind of have to just go a bunch of places.
Yeah.
You guys travel all the time when you guys are showing your game, and you don't know who's going to see it or who's not going to see it.
And which show would be the best for music? Because for us, it's always PAX, maybe a bit of MagFest, but for musician, which one? I would suspect MagFest for sure. What else?
MagFest is incredible. There's a lot of independent chiptune festivals that happen around the U.S., Europe, and Japan and stuff like that are super fun to play, and a lot a lot of game developers come out to my shows. Like when I played in Raleigh, I had like 7 different game developers from Raleigh who were at the show for some reason, and they were all talking to me after the show about possibly using tracks in games and stuff like that. So you never know like where is going to be the best place, but the best shows are usually the music festivals and stuff like that, just because the sound quality is better and there's more people there and it's just hype.
Yeah, I suspect that like I know that how can I say that? Sometimes you expect that this event will always like pay out. If I go there, everything will go out and everything. And you go there, and then you say, like, yeah, it was okay. But that little event that you don't expect, nothing that comes from it, then boom, you met somebody from Nintendo or Sony or whatever, like a
Right,
big guy.
right.
Like, what? Okay, that's totally random. So you don't know if you just don't go out there.
So the next time I went to GDC, I played this VR party, and it was really weird, and the sound was bad. I mean, the party itself was really cool,
Okay.
but the show wasn't that good. But a guy came up to me after the show, and he's like, "Hi, I work for EA. I might want to use your music in this thing or whatever coming up." And I was like, "Oh man, EA!" And then he ended up using my music for like this internal company game jam that nothing got released from. It was just but you never know, right? Like, you never know, like whether it's like, oh, I want to use your stuff on the next, Undertale or the next whatever, or if it's going to be, something that nobody will ever play ever. So.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny, and that's why I'm actually excited about Just Shapes and Beats, because there's so many people that are like, "This is amazing!" So I already know it's going to be a slam dunk once it comes out. So.
Again, more weight on my shoulder. I really need to finish that out.
Yeah,
I'm gonna stop the interview right now and just start working.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, I have actually hired more people to help me out on the project to be like to counter the blank slate where I'm just like fixing the screen and everything. So yeah. It's very hard. Like it's one of my hardest project and it's easily my hardest project ever in my entire career, because like first it's the first console game we ever do, and
right.
The second everything is based around making a visual representation of the music. So, for example, if you do an RPG, you know that you're gonna have equipment like a helmet, a sword, and some stats, and you beat monster and etc. So there's a long way before you actually go to the creative part where you put your own twist in there. But so every morning, I'm gonna do this. It's a long to-do list, but for Just Shapes and Beats, it's like, okay, I'm listening to the song over and over and over until I say like, okay, I think this will be a nice gameplay, and then you test and like, no, that was crap. Okay, what else can I do? So it's very hard. Like every morning, I don't know where to go. I'm just like standing there, just like, oh, I want to try that, and then I go, So anyway, again, we're talking about Just Shapes and Beats again, and not about you.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I have a
Talking about
project
my
that
stuff.
kind of reminds me of that actually. So. One of my other bands, it's actually my Twitter handle, is Arm Cannon, and we do video game covers usually.
Okay.
And so we've actually been kind of like on a hiatus for a little while. Our drummer's had like a bunch of family issues, like health problems in his family that he's been taking care of. So what we've been doing is writing new music, and we decided that we don't really want to do video game covers anymore.
Okay.
Just because we don't care anymore. We would much rather like do original music.
Okay.
Because we've been doing video game covers for 10 years, and we just don't. It doesn't have the same spark as it did, when I was doing it in 2006.
You have the same band for the past 10 years.
Yeah, we've
Wow.
actually been a band for 10 years. So we're working on this new album concept, and it's gonna be the soundtrack to a video game that doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
And so we're sort of, writing things in our own style, but like the starting point for everything is sort of like, okay, this will be the desert level. What does a desert level sound like? And, we don't want to delve too much into cliches of what, certain levels sound like.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing like a water level, and I was like, okay, let's reference a bunch of cool water tunes like Dire Dire Docks or, the Donkey Kong Country water level. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but like there's a bunch of really great underwater tunes. Like, okay, so these have a vibe to them. How do we write something that captures that vibe? Yeah. And it's kind of, we haven't really gotten a what's the word? Like, we haven't written like a script and a plot, but at the end of the day, we want it to be like an accompanying story to go along with everything. And So I can kind of relate a little bit where we,
Yeah.
are in kind of uncharted territory where we're just sort of writing and hoping that inspiration hits, at a certain time. And
Yeah.
it's kind of an ambitious project, but it's what we're working on. It's
Well,
gonna be cool.
after 10 years of experience, I think that you're ready to. I think you have the balls and you have everything in order to make that
Well,
the same band.
if we're not good, after 10 years of playing together, maybe we should pack it up and go home or something. But it's just sort of a way for us to really challenge ourselves in a way that we haven't before. And yeah, pretty cool.
So now you're working on a band. You also have Danimal Cannon, and you also
Yeah.
add Danimal Cannon and Zeph with parallel processing. So how
Yeah.
come you start like millions of little
I'm sorry, what were
projects?
you gonna say?
I said like you are like having millions of little projects like this. Like it sounds like you are all over the place. Like not only on
Ooh.
your brand, not only on your band, but here, and here. I don't know. Is it like per?
That's true. Some I would say it's project creep, where like, for example, like, being Danimal Cannon was not something that I went to go do. It was sort of like, hey, I just have a desire to sort of like do this thing as a side project for fun. I essentially wanted to be able to play as many guitar solos as I wanted during a live set. And then all of a sudden, like, oh, people are into this, and there's a scene all around the world that is receptive to this. Like, oh, I kind of have to keep going with this, and the collaboration with Zeph was sort of me challenging myself. Zeph,
Okay.
in particular, was a musician. His work on the Game Boy as an instrument was arguably like it was stuff that inspired me, and I sort of wanted to be a Borg and absorb his powers. Um, so like I really admired his programming, and I was like, hey, we should collaborate so I can totally look at all your save files and figure out how you did everything. Um, and it's cool because I don't know, I learned a lot during that project, and the music that came out was completely different than something I would have written by myself. And I thought we made a pretty good album, actually. I don't know if we'll do it again. It's kind of a pain in the ass to collaborate with people, but it's just so much easier to write by yourself, and you're like, that's a good idea, and then you agree with yourself, and you go, yeah, it is a good idea, and then it happens. Meanwhile, when you collaborate with other people, you're like, wow, I have this great idea, and someone's like, no, that's not a good idea, and then you yell at each other for a while, and it's terrible.
Did the other album that you made, Roots, it came after or before? I don't remember.
Before
Before
that, it's
that.
actually, yeah, it's funny when I listen to that album because there's a lot of I guess chiptune techniques that I wasn't very good at.
Okay.
I still think the songs are good, but like I can see so many parts of it where I'm like, oh, I could have done this so much better if I would have had the knowledge I had now. I mean, I guess that means I'm getting better, but I still think it's cool. People like it, and I think the songs are pretty good.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's how you. How can I say that? Like, every time you look at what you did in the past, you're like, oh, I know when I look at my first game that I was very proud of when I was like 8 years ago. I look at
Right.
them today, I'm like, ouch! Look at that. Nothing is like, and nothing is good. The visuals not tight. The animation, like, the information is not conveyed. Like I could do so much better, and people come to us like at events and say like, "Hey, that was the best game ever." Like, okay, but dude, I really don't like this one. Even one guy told me once like, "I really enjoyed your late game. Now you're getting worse and worse over time." It's like, okay, thank you, I guess.
So one thing I've learned is that they're not wrong, by the way. Like their experience of enjoying your game is not invalid. Um, like if someone comes up to you and be like, "I love this game that you made," and you're like, "It sucks, it's crap," and you're
Yeah.
kind of almost insulting their opinion.
Yeah.
And so it's even though that there are flaws in the game, there's plenty of really flawed games that I still love to death, and I think it's important just to say thank you. That's cool. I'm glad that somebody enjoyed this thing that I did one time.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not that you can't learn from it, but it's important not to, I think, tell people that their opinion sucks.
No, totally not. It's just like I never said to someone, like, "Oh, you like that? Come on, it's crap." Because like it would destroy.
Yeah.
Like if I go to Terry Kavanaugh, for example, and say, "Hey, I really love Super Hexagon," and he goes like, "Oh, I hate this game." Like what? I played like 300 hours of my time on that game. So that would be super disappointing / insulting. But yeah,
Oh,
still like it's really weird like how you always have your nose in it and see like what you like. You only see the could have been like oh
oh
it could
yeah,
have been better, could have been better all the time. But people, they enjoy what they see in their hands. So
absolutely. Um, oh man, I was checking my email the other day and I noticed that I sold an album to Terry Kavanagh and I was like, what?
oh
I had to like make sure it was the same Terry Kavanagh, and I was yeah, so that made my day for
there
a
you
day,
go.
and I was like, maybe he'll use my no, he won't. It doesn't
Super
matter.
Hexagon 2 confirmed. There you go.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
there you go. Confirmed. If you don't, I will do it.
I don't know if that's legal, but okay.
I call it like Super Pentagon, and that's it. There you
The Super Pentagon. There we go.
go. Well, I don't know what the other like Super
Sept.
Septagon. There you go.
Yeah, Septagon.
There you
That sounds badass. I like it.
go. That sounds like legal problems.
Yeah.
Nice. So you did the Roots by yourself, and then
Yes.
you decided to collaborate with Zeph to absorb his power. By the way, there's one track from Roots that I want in Just Ships and Beats. Probably more than one, but I know there's one that I really wanted in there. By
What
the
track
way.
is that?
It's called Agrobacter. It has the little like I'm on the beach vibe or something.
Oh, really? Uh, it's funny because when I think of just shapes and beats, I think of more up-tempo stuff.
Yep, but usually, yeah, you'll see why in the game. Like
You have a vision.
I have a vision.
Okay.
I can say that with my scarf. I have a vision. Yeah, it will be for a very specific moment in the game, and then everything will go out and explode and shit.
Oh, I
Give
do
a
want to
nice
say one
contrast.
thing.
Yeah.
So, like, let's say Agrobacter makes its way into the game for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
and what is super insane, and I just learned this a couple years ago when somebody first put one of my tunes in their game. It's when that song becomes like recontextualized in like a game. It's like I get to listen to it again for the first time, which is super crazy. Like to hear it and see it in a completely new context is totally mind blowing. Like it's one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me as an artist is to
Right.
like sort of view my music in a completely new context like that. And I think everyone should be able to experience that. Obviously they can't, but it's one of the coolest things that I've ever
Wow.
had. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that would be the like. How can I say that? Like you create your thing, you have your envision. You can do that with music actually. Like so people can take your music and put it to something else. So it must be like either fascinating or insulting on how the guy actually use your music for. So that's something I cannot do with games. Nobody can take my game and put it into another game or do the same thing. So
That's true.
that
Well, sorry. I'm sorry about that.
that was just like I wanted to dig deeper on this. Surely, the Just Ships and Beats music wasn't the first time you got that feeling, right? It wasn't.
No, some guy actually made a game based around roots, and
Ah,
it's on Greenlight. He ended up abandoning the project, and
no.
he started doing work with. He ended up started programming for Shushimi with Choice Provision Games, and also I think he did some programming work for Rain World as well.
Okay.
If you're familiar with those, but he made this game called to Roots, where you're a pizza that plays a Mega Man style game. But it was just super cool. He'd have like a cave level, and like he'd have one of my tracks as the cave music, and I'm like, oh man, this totally works like this. I'd never thought about that at all, and
Nice.
super cool. But that was the first time. It's happened a bunch of times since then. Um, it's kind of crazy. Um, I do have one funny story. I think the first time anyone has ever used my music for something else was a YouTube video with some really old Street Fighter remix I did.
Okay.
Street Fighter 2010 for the NES, by the way, which is
Okay.
totally not a Street Fighter game.
The platformer one, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great game, by the way. And I think somebody used a remix from that to them like hitting things with swords in the woods, like a supercut of like them chopping things with their swords. It's fucking hilarious. But I think that's the first and possibly my favorite thing that anyone has ever done with my music ever.
don't know what to respond to that. I have no
Yeah,
words.
I mean, either it's like I'm gonna film myself chopping things in the woods with my swords. Pretty sweet, like chopping watermelons and stuff like that. It's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
How did it start up? By the way, like how did you meet your band? When you started playing? Your main instrument is guitar, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Do you play any other instrument as well?
I know my way around drums. I know my
Okay.
way around keyboard. I wouldn't call myself particularly good at either. I can sound like I know what I'm doing a little bit on
Okay.
them.
Okay.
I mean, when I'm writing music, it's super important for me to sort of understand those instruments. So, like, knowing a little bit of drums helps me construct drum beats like
Okay.
so well. Even though it's not my main instrument.
Okay.
And keyboard, like every instrument has a superpower. I like to think about it. So guitar is really good at like playing fast notes, like or like doing like bends and vibrato, like that's what guitar is really good at. Piano is not good at that. You can't
No.
like you can only play single notes. But you can play like big arpeggios like really well, which is really hard to do on guitar.
Hmm.
So like big arpeggios like like
Yeah.
some. Hopefully that made sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and so there's a bunch of other instruments, that have superpowers. Like violins can only play like two notes at a time. You can't play three notes at a time on a violin, but you can do like cool slides, and you can also change your note attack over time with your bow. So you can go. So that's like the superpower of those instruments. And so understanding that, like when I go to write music, sort of allows me to tap into each superpower or knowing what instrument to use to get a certain type of feel like that. So while guitar is my main instrument, like I try to pay attention to everything that exists because it just gives me, I don't know, more ways to sort of like make music and express and choose the right instrumentation for the right part.
So I really loved your vision on how every instrument has a superpower. I really like
Oh
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
and some
Totally.
of them have weaknesses too. Like
Yeah.
violin can only do two notes at a time. So I mean, obviously, if you have like 10 violins, like orchestras do, then it's not a big problem. But it's interesting to think about. It makes you write music differently when you consider the instrument that's playing with it.
Nice. And
Yeah.
so okay, so I guess you played guitar like for like since you were 5 years old or something.
12.
12.
And yeah, so I'm 33, so I guess 21 years, I
Okay.
guess.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
And you formed your band in 22 then, so like 10 years after that. So with guys from university, high school, how did you met
Yep.
those?
Yep. From college, we all used to hang out in this commuter lounge, and me and our keyboard player were kind of video game nerds, and we also didn't even know each other were musicians.
Okay.
And we actually went to some party to go drink. And he was like, "Hey, bring your guitar, and can you play the Kraid theme from NES Metroid?" And I was like, "Yeah, I could do that." And so he brought over some keyboard, and we jammed at some stupid party. And then we ended up getting a guitar player who also happened to be at that lounge that we would hang out with, and he's awesome. And I actually live with him now. He's my roommate.
Okay.
Years later. So, and then it's pretty much the core of us three from university. Like we've had a bunch of bass players and a couple of drummers too. So they don't count though. Bass players and drummers aren't actually. Yeah, they're not humans.
They don't have any superpowers.
Yeah, no powers. They can be easily replaced. Don't tell them I said that.
No, I won't. I won't put that online as
Yeah.
well either. Oh, nice. So, okay, so it was like 2005 or six.
Yep.
How did you start to say like, okay, we are now officially Arm Cannon and we're gonna go to places, perform, and get some money out of that? I assume.
Everything that has happened in my life or career has sort of been an accident of me just following my weird nerdy passions. So like me covering video game music, like I used to try to get my old metal band to do it, and they were like, "This is dumb. Like, why are you doing this? Like, why do I want to learn the theme from Super Mario?" I'm like, no, this is Square 2. Just play this. It'd be cool. And they're like, "No, we're just gonna play metal tunes." So I that was just like my weird nerdy thing, and not a lot of people were doing it at the time. I mean, like there were like a few people that existed in a couple bands like the Mini Bosses and the Advantage. But it wasn't like today where there's like Magfest and 1,000 bands. I mean, Magfest existed too, but there was only 500 people going to it.
Yeah, I think that
Um,
YouTube didn't even exist back then in
it was
2005.
Google Video. I
Yeah.
found out about Magfest via Google Video.
Yeah, I do remember like there was one viral video that came out was like one guy playing the a medley of Mario on piano. And it was like that's insane. It was like a random guy around the world, but he was the first one. And it has like millions of views. The guy was a very nice pianist, and now
Oh yeah.
you can just like type on piano video game and you have like millions of videos. You know.
Right, right. And so, anyways, I just sort of like put together a band of covering video game tunes, and our first few shows were like fantastic successes. It turns out, the video game music is super fun, and we were pretty good at playing music, and it's fun. So. Eventually, we found out like, oh, there's actually like people around the world like doing this. So we got invited to play, a couple places out of town, and like, oh, this is crazy. Like we're not even trying to do anything. Like we're just playing tunes and getting opportunities like thrown in front of us. And it's really the same thing with me doing chiptune music and Danimal Cannon. Is I was just a hyper nerd, and I was like, I want to do this because I'm a nerd and I need to express myself. And I played one show. And after my first show, I had offers in like Philadelphia, New York, and some other places. So like, you're good. Come to these. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, maybe there's something to this. Like,
That's
so
insane.
yeah, yeah. And I don't like that shouldn't be, what anybody counts on whatsoever. I mean, part of the reason that I got invited to these places is like, oh, I had already been playing with Arm Cannon for like, 6 years. So,
Yeah.
at that time, or 5 years, and people had known me from that, so I got a bunch of opportunities. And I was playing with Metroid Metal, who was another band that I play with because I have too many projects, and people knew me from
I
that.
can
So I was kind
relate
of
to
able
that.
to sort of parlay some of like that, those contacts from that into some kind of crazy weirdo success. It's kind of weird. But I never set out to like conquer the world or be a video game
Okay.
composer. I just sort of fell into it, and I was like, oh, cool, this is what I want to be doing anyways. So,
I can relate to your story so much. I mean, when I started, I didn't even wanted to make video games. I play video games since I'm like 2 or 3 years old. I wasn't even able to talk, but I was playing like on Commodore 64. And I was like, man, video games is not for me because like it's probably some people in Japan, like people that are super like geniuses, and I cannot do that. It's not for me. And I just grew up with that idea, and then eventually I had like a job offer to go to a video game company here in Quebec. And I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna try. And I just fell in love. I worked like overtime for no reason without my boss asking. And it was just like always intense in there until I said like, okay, since I'm spending so much time on doing that, I should maybe go on my own, because instead of spending all my time on somebody else, I want to spend my time on myself, with two other guys. So we built a Berserk Studio, and then stuff came up, But,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
in 2005, if I wanted to be a video game music composer, no matter how good I was, it wouldn't matter. Like I would not be able to get those jobs. I wasn't Japanese. There wasn't a lot of games being made in America.
Yeah.
Around 2009, everything changed because that's when the App Store opened, and then they also started to open these console things like Steam and Xbox Live Arcade to indie developers. And then that's sort of what has made my entire career, I guess, possible, is the fact that, okay, now the tools to make video games are available to anyone. You don't have to pay $10,000 for a Nintendo dev kit, that is only available in Japan or something like that. And you don't need to learn assembly language to use it.
Yeah.
And so the fact that, there's these distribution platforms for all these independent game developers and artists, and then there's also just this crazy market that exists via, for games of slightly smaller scope, because a lot of the games I composed for were like apps and stuff like that back before the App Store wasn't complete garbage, because it kind of is. But
Yeah.
But there was a lot of jobs like, hey, we need a composer for this, and we need somebody to do sound effects. It's like, oh, I know how to do that. I turns out I've been playing video games and studying sound effects for, 10 years. It was like a test I didn't know that I was studying for. And since a lot of the people that became independent game developers were also people who were into chiptune music or into video game covers or something like that, just because that's their passion, that's their hobby. So I was, without knowing it, like already advertising to indie game developers 10 years before I even knew that they existed. So I just kind of fell into that just through sheer luck.
Good timing and good luck.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's
Did
whatever.
you wanted to become like a full-time musician from day one, or did you study in that, or did you just
Oh,
follow your life?
my parents always told me don't be a musician because like there's no guarantees and blah blah blah. And
Typical.
yeah, and so I went to school.
That's the biggest
And
reason why I didn't become a musician, by the way. At one point in my life, I wanted to become either programmer or musician. It was like, I became a programmer because I said, oh, stability and stuff. I think it's a good choice now because like
right.
it's my passion and everything. But yeah, I can relate to like, don't go there. So please continue.
Right,
So,
right. So, being a musician was always just a hobby for me. I went to college for molecular biology, and I really got into genetics. And I was going to go get a full-time job and whatever. Like, when I graduated college, that's when the U.S. like economy crashed.
Okay.
And so it was like, oh, there aren't any jobs available. And I was like, well, I'm already traveling for music right now, so I might as well just spend a couple years having fun.
Yeah.
Like instead of going to get a full-time job. And then it sort of morphed into like, hey, it turns out you could do this kind of for a living. It happened super organically. I never planned on it ever. And
So
I don't know.
you just thought, oh, I can do this and like be paid for doing my passion, so I'm gonna do it. So then you realize, oh, I've been doing that for like 6 months. Maybe I can invest more time into this and make like
Right.
be able to do that all the time.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And the only thing about being a musician that sucks is the pay is very unsteady. Like it is occasionally very lucrative, and then sometimes like there's gaps and like, hey, I only sold like 3 albums this week. That's
Yeah.
cool.
I can
So-
relate to that as well.
Yeah. So it's a little bit scary, but I'm hopeful. I have a lot of friends that are like my peers, people who are doing very similar things to me that are just doing incredibly well, and so I'm not too concerned that things will continue to like get better because over the last 6 or 7 years, like there's just been very continuous, albeit slow and unsatisfying growth. Throughout all of that. So I figure if I keep going and keep growing, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But it's I don't have that viral breakout hit yet. That would be really convenient.
But as long as like somebody on my channel once said that, when will you consider yourself successful? It was asking me the question. Yeah, so well, I'm already successful. Like I'm not rich or
Right.
whatever, but I can pay food. I can feed my 3 kids, my wife. I can pay all the bills and everything. And I'm not the only guy. My wife isn't a doctor making all the bills and everything. While I play with video games, like I'm making money to sustain the entire family. So it was like, well, I'm okay. All my coder friends that I met in college and high school, they all make like double my salary right now, because they're in a steady job and everything. But it was
Right.
like, dude, I'm already successful. I'm just enough to pay my bills, to feed my kids, and work on video games all day. So I don't want more than that, So it's been, but I can relate to when you said. Sometimes you have no money. Sometimes it goes better, so you save for more time. It's really a roller coaster. Like someday you wake up, you have lots of money in your bank, so you save some, and then 6 months later you have nothing because you're working on a project that's
Right.
gonna take another 6 months before it gets released. So you're just like, yeah. So you just ride that wave. So
I guess I'm lucky that music takes a little bit less time than game development, and so
I don't know. That's a good question, actually. How much time does? I mean, that's a very general question. So, like, how much time does it take to make a track? It depends on the track, but I don't know. Typically,
an average track on my new album, probably like anywhere from 20 to 60 hours per track.
20
of
to 60 hour. Okay.
yeah, yeah. Which it that's 20 to 60 hours of actively working. Sometimes like when you're writing, I'm sure you feel not inspired or you don't know what you want to do, or maybe there's an idea you do that turns out to be crap, and you're like, well, gotta get rid of that. So, but I would say an average to 20 to 60 hours, and that's really a rough time. I mean, a lot of times I'm like playing through and rehearsing with it, like when I'm playing guitar and stuff like that. I'm like, hey, sequence something, and I'm like practicing for a while and seeing how it feels over different grooves. A lot of times I do like a big sketch, and then I sort of chip away at it like an ice sculpture, where you sort of just go back and continuously add small details until you have something that's actually kind of cool.
Okay, so we're talking about 20 to 60, so about like 3, 4, 5 months per album.
Yeah. I haven't really written that much since I released the album. So this is dumb, but I stopped dating women because I was too distracted. And so
That's somebody passionate, guys.
Yeah,
Write that
yeah,
down.
yeah.
You want to be a musician like Daniel Cannon? Stop dating women.
Yeah. Oh my God. Every time I start going out with a girl, I'm like, I really should be working on this audio right now, and not texting you or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bad person. But so when I was working on the new album, I definitely took like a 6 or 7 months. I was like, no girls, no girls allowed.
No girls allowed. Nice.
Yeah. So, I consider myself to have like a certain amount of mental RAM that's available to be allocated towards like things, and women just occupy far too much of that for, me to effectively write music.
So not now, woman. I'm working. Basically.
Yeah, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to ever put somebody in that sort of position. And when I am interested in a girl, like I pay attention to them all the time, and I don't pay attention to music. Like my priorities just get out of whack. So I don't know. What I will say is it was a very effective.
Well, I did like. How could I say that? Like I had before I jumped into the game development train, I had my wife, and when I co-founded Visual Studio, I had one kid. So I already was already into the 8 to 4 a.m. So I was already like, how can I say that? I know what you mean, like having less time for your work.
Right.
But for me, it became a way to motivate me for that time in work. So, for example, my wife is taking care of the kids while I work. Okay, so she also works on the side, but she is a mom at home and take care of everything, which is a big job on its own. And my point is now she's taking care of the kids, so I can work. So I have 40 hours a week dedicated to work.
That's
now
awesome.
I cannot, during that time, I cannot say, I want to play StarCraft. I don't feel like working. No, because she's taking care of the kid for me to work. So I will feel terrible if I don't work and just play video game instead. Say, oh, sorry, you took care of the kids while I was playing video games. So I would feel terrible about that. So it became a source of motivation because those 40 hours are set in stone. And when it's Friday, like when it's Friday night, I have to stop, play time with the kids and everything. So during the weekend, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to go back to work. I can't wait to go back on Monday. And then I'm like, one Monday morning, I'm like, yes, now I have 1 week so I can work. Yay, So it became a way to motivate myself. All these women's and kids things. So it can become a source of motivation.
That's fair. The other thing that I sort of didn't do is I didn't play video games.
Okay.
I fear video games because I get addicted to them, and then I get sucked into a hole for like, hours. Like, oh, hey, I just played this game for 30 hours straight. Like, oh, I could have been working on anything.
Yeah.
But I got sucked into that hole. However, after I finished my last album that came out in March, I got myself a gift, and I got myself a PS4, and so I've been playing through some stuff, and I've just been rewarding myself a little bit. I consider it like a weird drug, playing video games. I've been playing Street Fighter V lately, and I'm trying to get good at it. Like I'm super into like the competitive scene, and I watch all these matches, and Yeah, and but I limit myself to about 30 minutes a day.
Okay.
And then after that, after I get my ass kicked online like 11 times in a row, I go, I get angry and then I just turn off the console, and I don't want to get sucked in for like 10 hours at a time. So I actually really like casual like mobile gaming. In fact,
Okay.
that's the gaming that I was doing forever as I was playing like, I mean, it sounds stupid, but like Angry Birds, Ridiculous Fishing,
Yeah.
and just I've been playing Slither.io
Yeah.
like crazy lately. That game's amazing. I don't know if you play that at all, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so I tend to prefer casual gaming, even though I love, like I just finished the Uncharted series.
Okay.
That series is incredible. Um, but gaming and women are my vices, and in order for me to actually be a productive human being, I have to avoid them.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe I just have a one-track mind. I think
No,
that's what
no.
it
I
is.
mean, I remember when I was a kid how I envisioned making video games, and I saw somebody like on the chair just like playing video games all day. It's like, oh, that must be. And even today, when I talk to kids or anybody in my family, say, hey, I make video games. They're just like kind of smiling and say, "Oh, that must be hard." Like if I'm just working, if I'm just playing and everything, you know. But it's like, no, I have to not play video games in order
Right.
to work on video games. You know, it's two different things. And I ended up to a point where I had to force myself to play new video games because, like, I didn't play any of the God of Wars, any of the Gears of Wars as well, Uncharted, Far Cry, Dark Souls, all those big games. Like I never played because like I had kids plus my job at making video games, so it became like a nice. It's super ironic that I'm a game dev but cannot play cannot play video games, you know.
Right.
So I decided to put like in my to-do list play 15 minutes of video game every day, but a game that you don't know, you know. So StarCraft 2 doesn't count in there because I played already like lots of hours into StarCraft 2. So something that would inspire me to do other stuff just to see like what's out there, you know, just to broaden my inventory, because it would be as ridiculous as if I was a writer that doesn't read books, you know. I need to consume, you need to consume the art that you are creating at some point, you know. So yeah, it's super ironic though, because I have to limit myself and say, okay, only 15 minutes now, time to get to something else, because that's a drug. I need to work on making those drugs now. It's really it's really weird.
Listening to music for me is kind of cool in that like it can be a passive thing. Like I can listen to music while doing other things, and when I am listening, I'm essentially constantly doing research. I'm constantly paying attention to, all right, what is the instrumentation going on? What's the composition? You know, what chords are they using? You know, are they staying within a certain scale or are they deviating from that?
So you're always deconstructing the music, right? You're always analyzing.
Every moment
Yeah.
that I'm like I can occasionally listen to music while I'm doing something else and not do that, but
Okay.
whenever I'm actively listening, which is anytime I'm driving or anytime that I you know, just listening for whatever reason because I'm bored, I'm actively just analyzing every component from the production and recording quality to the composition and arrangement, and I'm hoping to, you know, get an idea or like a starting point, like, oh, they use this musical device that I didn't think about using for a long time, like maybe I'll incorporate that into something that I do. And I'm just essentially a music Borg, and that's my goal, is to be that and just steal all their powers. And you know,
When you
that's-
steal from lots of people, it's not stealing though; it's creating. So
there is a huge difference between like stealing as in like, you know, like, hey,
Copy-paste.
I copied the same chord progression, that like, oh, hey, you used a certain vibe or a production technique. Like
Yeah.
you just sort of apply the ideas. You don't actually, you know, steal.
yeah,
And it's kind of crazy. I've had friends like, you know, Saber Pulse. I think a guy named Riff Raff, he's a rapper. Whoever made a track for him like stole a Saber Pulse song as the beat, and it's not just like a clip of it, because sampling culture is interesting that you can, you know, create something new out of like other material. But like when it's called stealing wholesale, when the beat is literally just the whole song with rapping on top of it.
what? Okay.
Yeah, that happened to Saber Pulse. That happened to some Swedish artist, some chiptune artist, by who was it? Oh, what is the name of that guy? I don't remember the name. He's a big famous producer, and he totally stole some chiptune track, and it was like, hey, That's crazy. People do that. So people do steal. I
Yeah.
just try to, incorporate ideas.
Yeah. And you can't really do much against that, right? Somebody steal your track. Like you have a choice between say like, well, that happened, or say, okay, let's go into the legal direction and pour a shit ton amount of money for nothing. Like,
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you can just call them out on the internet, and that's
yeah,
satisfying too. Be like, wow, this guy's a big phony. And then there's news stories about it.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. That's a good
but
point.
in at least one of those cases, there has been settlements. So,
Okay, okay.
yeah, kind of crazy.
I know when we put our game on, we when we made the Flash games, there was a lot of
Timbaland
people.
is the name of the guy.
Timbaland.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there you go. Timbaland stole a chiptunes track years ago. Thank you, Butts Forever. That's
Yes.
the perfect name of that.
Right. Thank you, Butts Forever. Great username.
So speaking of username, maybe we should check out. We have some questions from the audience, my friends. Since we've already been talking for the past hours, I don't want to take
Oh,
too much of your time, because you'll be treating me like okay, I have to stop talking with Latch and work actually.
Clearly. You're like a girlfriend now.
There we go. So it came on full circle, right? I started with
Yes.
the first romantic question. Say, how did we meet? We got Super Mario Word asking, how do you handle marketing?
That is a really good question. So for my latest album, I found a PR service to market my album to news outlets. And what
Okay.
they do is essentially they give me like a questionnaire and they send it out to websites for either reviews or interviews or things like that.
Okay.
And it costs money. It turns out it's pay to play to do anything in this world. Like that's why people have advertising budgets and like things like that, because the music industry is locked down. They don't want you to be able to get press.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So I found a PR company that actually did progressive metal. So it was metal music that was kind of in the vein of mine. I kind of had an odd spin on it that I was doing chiptune progressive metal, but the thing is they had contacts to places that would actually maybe enjoy my album. And they sent it out, and I got like a ton of really good reviews. I got 2 incredibly bad reviews. The biggest metal magazine in the world gave me the worst review of all time. It was kind of amazing.
Ouch.
And
Okay.
yeah, right?
The worst review of all time.
Oh yeah, I
Ouch.
think they said it was something that the idea of like making music on a Game Boy was like something you would come up at like midnight while you were stoned and drunk with your buddies.
Wow. Ouch.
Well, that is
Okay.
incredibly ignorant, but whatever.
Well,
But
yeah.
yeah, but for the most part, like you have to send it out to places that will actually enjoy your content. So I could send out 1 million reviews to websites that like focus on reggae music, and they'd be like, "What is this crap?" Or "I didn't like this because it turns out we do reggae music." And I have friends who've done that where they've done PR campaigns, and if it's not getting sent out to the right websites,
You're wasting
it's
money.
not. You're just wasting money. Exactly. So I found a PR company that was sort of based in the sort of music that I, was making, and I thought that was really effective. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I did a little bit of advertising like on Facebook and stuff like that. Marketing kind of sucks because you have to be annoying. When I was going on tour, I probably posted like almost every day, like, "Hey, I'm going on tour. These are the
Yeah.
dates," like on every single piece of possible media. And every single time, like even like the day before a show, some guy would be like, "Whoa, you're on tour?" And so you kind of have to be annoying. It sucks because you don't want to alienate your audience where you're sort of like sounding like just a commercial that's
Yeah.
constantly.
And it's
So-
hard to talk about yourself. Say, "Look at me now." Then tomorrow, "Look at
Right.
me again. Look at me. Are you looking at me now?" It's super annoying to do.
What's really cool about the PR campaign is, every day I would have like, "Oh, here's an interview I did. Oh, here is a review." And so I'd have some new piece of content to like sort of show them, and keep advertising the same piece of media. Because if it's just you saying like this album is great, like nobody will believe you. But if somebody else says like if there's a review or if you have a Just Shapes and Beats like award from Destructoid being like best game of PAX, you could be like, hey, check this out. Somebody other than me said it was good because your opinion doesn't matter as the creator. Like you are an unbiased party. So the trick is to get other people to say your stuff is good. Now, one thing I will say when marketing your stuff is if your album isn't good, just because you're getting reviews does not guarantee good reviews. So if your album isn't good, which obviously is relative, but if it's just not up to snuff in terms of composition or sound quality or production or artwork, you're just going to get bad reviews, and you're not going to want to share it with anybody. And you don't want to like share reviews that say this game sucks or this album sucks. So it ends up being a waste of money if you don't do it correctly. But yeah, that was kind of what I did for marketing, and I would actually put more money into it next time. I thought it was pretty effective. And it turns out you can just buy fame now. That's how that works. If you just pay enough PR companies to push your stuff to enough outlets, it turns out you're famous now.
As simple as that.
It's
even if you
crazy.
Even if you had the worst review on the metal cover thing.
But if your stuff is good and you're putting it out to enough places and putting your money in the right places, it should do well. In theory.
Now I have another question for you. Actually, I don't know how how it works on music, but by looking around for other tracks for Just Shapes and Beats, I found out a couple of labels like 99 Lives, I think, and a Monster Cat. And do you know anything about those? I mean, can you send a song to them, or can they how does that work if they want to take like one of your songs? Because it sounds like a big collaboration or anything. I know nothing about the labeling. Please tell me. I don't know.
Wait. I don't think I completely understand.
Yeah, that was a very confusing question. Sorry, but okay, let's suppose I'm a musician.
Okay.
What's the benefit? Can I go and check out with a label like Monster Cat, or should I go try to get a PR company and sell my own albums, for example?
I don't know. I know that there are some services like Taxi or something that sort of like promote your music to be used in movies and commercials and media and stuff like that.
Okay.
I don't know anybody that has really used or had success with them. I have heard that they do work in certain circumstances. My friend Mega Ran got some placement in Portlandia, and again, it's not something that really propelled his career or anything like that, but it's just kind of a cool thing where oh, hey, Mega Ran was in Portlandia. I really don't know about some of these promotional services. What I will say is when I was looking at the PR company that I went with, I looked at their artist roster, and they were artists that I was slightly musically similar to, and they were super legit. And I was like, oh, I want to be, if these people use them, then, this person must be legit because they couldn't have fooled all these people into a terrible service. So
you look at their inventory and say, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Their roster of people that they're representing. They're like, hey, this band and this band and this band. And if those are ones that sort of line up with what you're doing, that might be something worthwhile for you.
And what's another question again? What's your biggest source of revenue? Is it making the tours and making shows, or selling the album, or something else, like licensing? A little bit of all?
It is a little bit of all. I think the album sales tend to be the most.
Okay.
I do make a lot of money when I go on tour, but I only do it about once or twice a year. So it's not something that's very steady.
Must be exhausting though, going on tour.
Yeah, and I only really want to do it once or twice a year, unless I had an incredibly lucrative tour. And those are difficult to set up, and they're tons of work, and you're essentially working 24 hours a day, and it's very hard. It's super rewarding, but it is hard. I would say album sales, especially off of Bandcamp, because Bandcamp essentially allows me, with their upgraded artist revenue, to keep 89 cents on a dollar, which is amazing, and with zero overhead, and the fact that I can essentially when an album gets bought on Bandcamp, the money is actually going to me, the artist, and not going to all these like different companies and something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So
so,
then you take care of promoting your own album.
yep, I'm a
Okay.
little bit worried about how um, streaming is going to factor into all this. Whether people are going to stop buying music and just stream it off of Spotify, and if
Hmm.
that is like a model that will work. But I'm trying to diversify with, again, the licensing of tracks to games and stuff like that, composing original tracks for new games, um, going on tour. Like, I don't want to make one single thing,
Okay.
be one source. It diversify my portfolio or some shit like that.
Okay. 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 Yeah, the cool thing with that is when you are creating a new project, you can rely on those lots of little seeds that you've planted, like in every single ground, so it can, give you enough money to pay bills and continue. So, yeah, I know that like the old games that we did 10 years ago are still making a few dollar a month, so that's something. If you put a lot of project like that, and then you get enough. I had a question though. No, a question. I was saying you were talking about tours and everything. Maybe we could do a Just Shapes and Beats tour.
Maybe. Can you get people to show up to a venue and play Just Shapes and Beats?
That would be awesome. Like people play Just Shapes and Beats and you play live the album.
Maybe. Maybe.
That'd be an insane show.
It would be.
All right, let's go back to the audience. So we got we got Kay asking. I think that you already asked answered the question, but hey, what is your favorite instrument to use? I guess it's guitar.
Yeah, it's got to be guitar, but the Game Boy is pretty sweet too.
Yeah. How did that work actually? Like I saw you on YouTube making like working on that, and I could not understand a single thing on, on what you were doing. And how did you jump on that? How did you discover that and jump on that?
I I used to study old NES music when learning to cover it
Okay.
for Arm Cannon, and I
Okay.
would just break apart the tracks with the individual channels because the sound chip had like, oh, here's two pulse channels, one triangle channel, and a sample channel, and a noise channel. And the Game Boy is very similar to that.
Okay.
And I had already, when I was picking apart those tracks for Arm Cannon, I was like, oh, they used like a crazy like delay effect by having two channels where the second note plays slightly
Okay.
later, and all sorts of weird techniques like that. So when I was learning the NES tracks, I sort of learned a bunch of tricks that they used when making chiptune music. So when I went to go start making my own, because somebody wrote homebrew software for the Game Boy, so you can use the essentially a music sequencer as a game, and not really a game, but like kind of a homebrew program.
Hmm.
And it I already had kind of learned a lot of the tricks, and it just practice and paying attention to other people's work, asking questions, and being like, "Oh, how did you make this noise?" And like that's part of the reason I collaborated with Zeph is like he was making a lot of noises that I had never heard anyone make before on a Game Boy, and I was like, I want to learn how to do that because his stuff is like genuinely, inspiring to me in that way. So it was kind of a cool way to collaborate, and so I could steal his programming powers. Um, but the answer to that's kind of complicated.
Yeah.
It's an instrument that runs via kind of code, not like code that you write, but like just a text-based sequencer, and it's kind of crazy. And there's really weird specific limitations that make you make odd musical decisions that sound cool.
So it was the same instrument that people basically used back in the days on Game Boy.
No, it
and
is.
NES.
It's exactly the same. So
Wow.
the audio being generated when you played Super Mario Land is using the exact same processor that, or same way that I'm making music. I just have access to better tools for writing and also better, I can use the full CPU
Yeah.
to write. I don't have to like worry about a game actually working.
Yeah, yeah.
I have heard from like let's say the game Tecmo Super Bowl that the composer had to remove a bunch of like the expressions and stuff like that he had in there because it used too much CPU during the game.
No.
And so like the soundtrack actually would have been more complex, but I don't really have that problem.
That's insane. I mean, that's a problem that doesn't exist anymore nowadays.
Well, it
Like,
sort
you
of
have
exists.
to remove the some notes. It sort of
Yeah.
exists.
It's usually effects like vibrato effects when you like waver a note, like woo woo woo.
Okay.
If you go crazy with those, they use a lot of CPU. I couldn't tell you why they do, but for whatever reason. So if you do a lot of crazy vibrato effects, which is one way you can make kind of a cool sound, is just going ham on the vibrato. Um, but that uses a lot of CPUs, so I don't know. At
Didn't
least
know
on the
that.
Game Boy, I don't know about on the NES, but I occasionally, run out of processing power where I can program something that will cause my Game Boy to crash. So if I if I wanted to.
So you absorb all the power, and now you became mad with power and crashing
Yeah,
everything.
yeah. It's not very effective when you're trying to write music, though.
Okay, so let me check on the other question. How did you come to do what you do? We answered that. We got. Oh yeah, Zero Stats is asking how much game developer pays for music used in this project.
Oh, that's kind of funny because we had an argument about that.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
when you first approached me about just shapes and beats. Now, I'm not going to give you a number because I don't even have a number.
Mm-hmm.
It varies from project to project, the budget of the developer. Some projects have giant budgets, and you can kind of ask for more money.
Mm-hmm.
And it also depends on how much they want to use it. Like, do I want to use a small clip from this, or am I using like this is like the main theme to the game? Um, Most of the time, whenever possible, especially if they're using my music like a lot, I try to get a percentage off
Okay.
of the sales, and that's something that'll get me a lot of money over time, especially if the game does super well.
Mm-hmm.
If the game doesn't do that well, then it doesn't matter. But for example, there was a game called Wave that used my entire album parallel processing, and so I got a percentage from that, and it ended up doing like 500,000 copies or something like that, even for a mobile game.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, that was actually a really good source of revenue for a couple of years, actually. Um, and in that particular case, I don't think I got paid any money, just I got percentage, but that ended up being a very good deal because the developer at the time didn't have really any money, but
Okay.
he did have a good game. And it really varies from every project. I had one thing where I asked for a certain amount of money, and the person was like, "I'm going to give you double that because you don't know what our budget is, and it's way higher than you think it is." So I've also undervalued myself, even though I thought I was gouging them. Um,
Mm.
and honestly, like independent developers, like I don't want to gouge them. Like I don't want to be like, I'm going to get them for all they're worth. Um, so because I also realize that a lot of these projects that are using my music are passion projects of their own, where
Mm.
like maybe they're not counting on it to make $1 million. Maybe they're just doing it because they want to make, a cool game that's been in their head forever.
Mm.
So it's kind of money is complicated, and it's different in every case. Usually I like to have them make the first offer because then I can figure out, you know, uh, it's always preferable, but sometimes they ask you straight out, like, how much do you want for this? And you're like, oh no, I have to say something now.
Yeah.
Um,
The same thing
so
goes the other way. Like when we go to a musician and say like, is it that enough? Maybe sometimes it goes like, yes, right away. It's like, whoops, maybe it was like double the time, or like it's
yeah,
always
yeah,
like the
you never
first
know, you
time.
never know.
So it's very hard.
Um,
As
uh,
long as both the parties are happy.
yeah, and at the end of the day, like especially with licensing tracks, like I don't have to do anything. The track is
Mm.
already done. So um, even if it's a slightly low number, like I'm not losing anything. Meanwhile, a composing job, I think if they're hiring me to compose, it's a bit more important to competitively price yourself,
Mhm.
because it's a lot of work that you're putting in. But just licensing, it really depends on the developer and how much their budget is, and whether it's a passion project or like a big corporate thing. And yeah.
Sweet.
And also their intentions. Sometimes people are making a game for profit, and sometimes they're making it for fun. If they're making it for profit, you should definitely also get paid.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Yeah, I do remember our exchange actually. It was like a mail exchange like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a long
And
time
I,
ago.
yeah. And it was kind of funny
got,
because I said something and you were like, I don't think we can do that. Like, sorry, we're going to have to pass. And I was like, well, now I got to come crawling back. And like, I would take this.
we can talk
and then you
after the
just-
show if you want.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Of the year, we can talk.
It was just funny because when you had approached me, I was just hanging out with a lot of people at GDC who were telling me to be more aggressive with, the stuff that I was asking for, because they were like, "Oh, you're, undervaluing yourself," because sometimes people talk in private like, "Oh, how much you get for this? How much you get for that?" But I try not to really talk about that stuff so much in public. But it's a good question though, because I get emails all the time being like, somebody asked me what my rate is, and I don't even know what that question means. Please tell me.
Yeah, it's very hard to talk about price and yeah, in
Yeah.
public, like on record, like I try to not do it, like especially when you put that online afterwards. But yeah, if you come
Somebody
to
said, sorry, somebody said I should come to Walk-in Music Festival, the Walk-in Open Air. Is that in Germany, I think?
I
I
don't know.
really, I really want to go to that. Yeah.
Sarah
So,
Sarah Zucker, please speak. You said
yeah.
welcome. Okay, hang on.
I don't think I'm cool enough to play at Walk-in, but that would be amazing.
Okay, let's take like one last question. It's already like almost an hour and a half. Again, you probably have to work back on your album or next album, should I say?
I do
Uh,
have some things, yes.
yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
What's favorite? Hang on. I got. Okay, we got Monkey Man asking, how intense have you gone into making a song before?
How intense?
Have you gone into making a song before? I guess
How
what's the
intense? Oh, I got one for you. Maybe this is doesn't count, but it's a pretty good story. Um, so just before my tour, I wanted to do a cover, and I'm a fan of Rush, and so I wanted to do the song Subdivisions. So I made a chiptune cover of the song Subdivisions,
Mm-hmm.
and so I only had a couple days before I left on tour, and I was like, I think I can get this done. And it turns out Subdivision is a crazy complicated song. It's surprisingly complicated for a pop song. It has like the most time signature changes you could possibly have.
Okay.
And I ended up taking Adderall the one day because I had gotten a hold of Adderall, the drug, which I don't really take, but I had some, and I was like, oh, I got a free day. And so I took that, and I ended up working on that song for like 18 hours straight or something insane like that. And I was like 90% done with it by then. So, yeah, it took me like 18 hours to program that
Straight.
song. And that's not even writing. That's just arranging a song that was already written. Just learning how to play it, breaking down the parts, and then figuring out how to translate that onto a Game Boy. Um, so yeah, that's kind of the craziest thing I've done, I think, in terms of that. I was like, I gotta get this done. I better take this illegal drug and get it done. Uh, yeah. So whatever.
How much do you typically work though per day? Like 8 hours, 10, 12, depends.
Um. Oh,
Or
it's
per
super
week.
intense. So I have a part-time job that I work, and they give me all the time off that I want, which is awesome. But
Oh,
it
nice.
just makes my income a bit more steady.
Mm-hmm.
And if I need more, I can just work that. But it kind of interferes with how much time I can devote to music. So eh, I have been really bad lately about music-related things. With Arm Cannon, we get together twice a week to arrange the new album, usually for about like 4 or 5 hours. So probably about 10 hours a week, maybe 8 hours a week. We work on that.
Okay.
Um, Solo stuff, I haven't been writing that much music. I've been doing a lot of trip planning and booking and things like that. So I've been preparing for my Tokyo trip,
Mm-hmm.
booking all the flights and the hotels, and I've been negotiating rates with this local gig that I'm doing, and um, but I haven't been working on that much music like recently, only
Mm-hmm.
because I've just been kind of burned out and working my job, and so it really varies from day to day. I would love to work on music like 6 hours a day. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'd just get a bunch of caffeine and just hang on at my computer. Um, but there's I gotta go hang out with people and have a life, and stuff like that.
Well,
And,
booking plane tickets and going with the, like negotiating and everything is all part of the job that people usually don't think is
oh,
part of
absolutely.
being a musician or a game dev. I always said that making a game is 50% of the job because
Oh
after
yeah.
you're done, you have to talk about it. You have to book events. I mean, at the beginning of the of our talk, we said that you have to show up to events and then you shake hands with people and everything. So that's all non crafting
Right.
job, but that's still a job. So yeah, I mean, talking about yourself, going out, planning tickets, making your website, putting your songs online, etc. That's like 50% of the job. So that still count as working.
I always tell people that like music is the easy part. Like I really, don't have a problem with that. Like writing music, like I have a pretty good filter of like, hey, this thing you're working on is crap, or this is good. Like I can, I have a really good, what's the word? I can be objective about my own work,
Okay.
which is crazy because a lot of people can't do that. But that's like my superpower is to be able to tell when I'm sucking, and. So music isn't that hard for me, and production I've had a lot of practice on for the last 10 plus years, maybe 15 years now, and so that's easy too. It's the negotiations, the emails, the booking, the traveling, the marketing is one of the toughest things, and honestly I'm just figuring it all out now, and I get emails literally like once a month from somebody being like, hey, how did you do this? Like, you seem to be successful. Like, what's my next step? And the truth is like, I can tell you some things, but I am also just trying to figure it out myself. And it turns out there's a lot of work that goes into that, and hours and hours. And it's definitely the hidden thing. Like, for example, before this show, I'm so bad at Photoshop. And you were like, hey, I need 2 images. I need, this image at 400 by 400 and this at 75 by 15 or something. That thing in the bottom right corner of the screen. And it took me like an hour to do that.
You could have told me, though. You could have sent me some images and I would have done it for you.
We could have. I just was like, oh, this isn't that hard. And it turns out I'm just terrible at Photoshop. And if I could do my own like artwork, that would save me so much work. I do my own video work and I do my own audio work and my own writing and whatever. But like being able to do all those things, it turns out is what you have to do to be a musician. Is you have to have skills in all those, or you have to hire people, which costs money and cuts into what you make. So you can go either way. But sometimes it's really worth it to hire somebody who's awesome to do something where you're weak. So, like, I usually don't have a problem hiring a really great artist to do work because great art sells itself.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm in the same boat, actually. Before, we were just distributing games over Flash. So you put a game online and then bam, and then millions of people played it because it goes viral and voila. So zero marketing done. But now that we want to put it on consoles and on Steam and everything, now it's the other way around. We have to tell people, hey, come check out this game. And we are completely new in there, so we know we made a bunch of games, we know how to create games and everything, but how to sell them, we're like, it's not gonna be that hard, a couple of tweets and that's it. No. Turns out that marketing is a craft on its own. It's a career. It's something maybe as creative as crafting stuff. You can always learn new stuff on marketing. So but it turned out that we should hire somebody, or just say like, okay, I'm not that good in marketing. Yeah. Anyway, it's something that go ahead.
I see it all the time in the music industry. Is like, it's not necessarily the people who are the best at music who become successful, but like the people who are good to pretty good at music and are awesome at marketing and promotion, they end up being successful. And that's shitty, by the way. It sucks that is the case. But you still have to be pretty good. Like, if you're crap, like, nobody cares. But
yeah, I remember that Zafranks. I watched a video from Zafrank on YouTube. It was about creative jobs, and he said there's a craft of making the thing that you do, and there's a craft of making money out of the thing that you do. Right. There's 2 different skills, and you can be good at one or the other. But usually, like, those who are super famous are good into the craft of making money out of it, and the opposite is true.
I really hate the money part, though. Like, I just have always just done what I wanted to do because I like it, and I like collaborating with other really talented people like you. So for me, it's really ideal to just sort of like, hey, I'm going to put my music out there, and then cool people who are talented are like, yo, let's do this thing together. And it's kind of amazing, but I really do kind of dislike the business side of it, just because you have to consider all these things where you're like, well, I got to make this much money. It's not just, I want working on the coolest project. I guess that's the good part about being successful is you can kind of do what you want then once you
Yeah,
do make it, quote unquote. But
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. You can't really give a music or a game to your your landowner or like to your grocery stores to get some food. Like there, can I
Yeah.
make you a game so you can give a bunch of bananas or anything? It doesn't work that
You
way.
you actually aren't allowed to eat until you produce a game for me. So, I don't think that timeline works out too well.
All right, dude. I think that's all, man. It's already been like an hour and a half. I think we both have to come back to our craft.
Yeah, yeah. You're distracting me. Yeah.
You woman.
Yeah.
Do you? I want to call you on the spot. Do you have some maybe like album codes or something that you can give away to people watching right now? Maybe
Yeah, yeah. I could like
I call you on the spot.
I don't have them like in front of me, but if you give me 5 minutes after the show, I can send you a couple of them.
Ah, nice. All right. Like how about like three maybe?
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
Sweet. All right. And if there's a problem, I'm gonna pay it out of my pocket if there's a problem. But yeah, we're gonna give some giveaway to people watching right now.
So,
Sweet, man. So thank you very much for being on the show, man. It was awesome. Like an hour and a half passed so fast.
oh, thank you so much. It's fun to just, chat with people who are like-minded, people who, are I don't know. I don't get to have this conversation every day, so cool.
Totally. We can absorb the power, like our mutual
Right.
power, and become
Exactly,
awesomer.
exactly.
Sweet, man. All right. So thank you very much. Have a nice day, man.
Yeah, same to you, man.
See ya.
Peace.